I think the term protest is used much too often today, many times, when youngsters are simply trying to communicate an idea and they have no other way to communicate it.
So I don't think parents now give us enough responsibilities. They think that we're just little kids.
So it may be a demonstration.
The younger generation may not vote, but they have a great influence on the older generation.
That is, they do not have many times the access to your media that other groups have. And rather than a protest, they're simply communicating. And of course, they're not like the president of Marshall University. Normally, when he takes a stand on something like this, the media are interested. But these youngsters don't have this advantage.
For most Americans, young or old, student protests are still synonymous with the 1960s. During this decade, American high schools and universities experienced an explosion of political activism, with issues like civil rights and opposition to the Vietnam War consuming the students of the country. Huntington, West Virginia was no exception, with Marshall University students coming together to fight for changes in the world. In an interview with the Herald-Dispatch in 2008, Ralph Turner, the former professor of journalism at Marshall University, expressed his memories of the 1960s as being a time when people put their feelings into actions, saying, "They were exciting times. People were actually doing things and not just sitting on their fannies." After observing the massive changes brought on by the movements of the 60s, one has to wonder why student movements of today, such as gun control and preserving the environment, have struggled to create an impact that reflects the movements of the past. Michael Kazin, a professor of history at American University, believes that one of the disadvantages of the student activists of today is that they have latched onto a huge number of different causes. As a result, those students who are active are spread very thin, making it that much harder to create wider support for these causes. Others, such as political activists Noam Chomsky and Kathleen Cleaver, have contested their belief that the lack of results can be explained by the burdens placed on today's students, which limit the amount of time they can devote to political activism. Regardless of the reason for low student activism, these movements pale in comparison to those of the 60s, but that doesn't mean that today's movements cannot one day achieve that level of impact. If anything, the 60s should serve as a reminder to today's youth that not only does their voice matter, but it can cause actual change. Students all over the country demanded that they be heard in the 60s, and if the students of today are really serious about evoking change, we should learn from those in the past and question our generation's dedication to creating change.